listening to Dark Trail Confessions, where the woods hide secrets and the darkness often has eyes. The Ranger Who Wouldn't Leave the Woods. A story from the depths of northern Minnesota, where some things are better left unseen. I was a seasonal ranger in northern Minnesota assigned to a stretch of forest so remote, it didn't even have a trail name, just a number. Sector 12B. No campsites, no signage, no reason for hikers to be there. Which is why when a father reported his son missing from that exact area, my stomach dropped. The boy was 8 years old. His name was Caleb. He'd been walking behind his parents on a marked trail nearly 5 miles away when he said he needed to use the bathroom. They gave him 2 minutes. When they turned around, he was gone. No screams, no footprints leading off the trail, just an absence. Search and rescue was deployed immediately, but I was sent ahead to sweep Sector 12B because of something that happened the year before. 3 disappearances, all within a 2-mile radius, all involving children. The locals didn't talk about it openly, but they whispered one word when they thought no one was listening. Wendigo. I didn't believe in that. I believed in hypothermia, cougars, and people underestimating the woods. That belief lasted exactly 6 hours. By dusk, I found the first sign that something was wrong. A child's shoe. It was placed neatly in the center of a clearing, upright. Laces tied. No scuff marks, no blood, no tracks around it. That's not how lost kids behave. Kids drop things while running. They kick shoes off when they panic. They don't place them like an offering. The radio crackled. Any sign of the subject? Negative, I said, but something feels off. I should have turned back then. Instead, I followed the faint sound of crying drifting through the trees. It sounded like Caleb, but it was wrong. The voice repeated the same phrase over and over in the exact same tone. Dad. I froze. The forest went silent, not a bird, not a rustle. Only that voice, calling my name, repeating, waiting. I ran toward it, heart hammering. Every instinct screamed at me to turn back, but something kept me moving forward. Then I saw him, or what looked like him. Caleb stood in a small clearing, backlit by the fading sun. But his movements were wrong. Stiff, jerky, almost inhuman. Caleb, I called. My voice cracked, swallowed by the forest. He turned slowly, and his eyes, they weren't his eyes. Black, endless pits staring straight through me. His mouth opened and the same voice whispered, Dad. A low, guttural growl erupted behind me. The shadows shifted. The air grew cold. Not natural cold, something else. I spun around. Nothing. When I looked back, the boy or thing was gone. Only the shoe remained, upright, laces tied. Perfect. I radioed for backup. My voice trembled. Sector 12B, I need assistance. Something's wrong here. Static. Silence, and then faint, tiny footsteps circling me. Dad. I ran. I don't remember how far. The forest, it was endless. Shadows moving just beyond my sight. Every tree seemed alive. Every rustle, something following. By the time the team arrived, Caleb was gone. No footprints, no sign of struggle, just a shoe, still upright, still waiting. I left Sector 12B that night. I never returned as a ranger. But sometimes, when I'm alone, I hear it. A faint crying, calling, and I know the forest remembers. It followed me home. Before I ever saw it, I didn't realize I was being followed at first. That's the part that still bothers me the most. Not that something stalked me, but that it had time to watch me without me ever knowing it was there. I worked late shifts at a warehouse just outside town. Nothing unusual. Same route home every night. Same empty stretch of road through forest before the last turn into my neighborhood. Routine makes you blind. The first sign came in the form of something small, my porch light. I distinctly remember turning it off before leaving for work one night. I always did. Habit drilled into me by my father. But when I pulled into my driveway hours later, it was already on, cast in a pale yellow circle over the front steps. I stood there in my car longer than I should have, engine idling, staring at the house. Nothing else looked wrong. No broken windows. No open doors. I told myself I'd forgotten. That happens. Inside, everything was exactly where I'd left it. That should have been the end of it. The next night, the porch light was on again. I knew I'd turned it off that time. I even remembered the click of the switch under my thumb. Still, I shrugged it off. Old wiring. Electrical quirks. Anything but the thought that someone or something had been there. A few nights later, I noticed footprints near the side of the house. The ground was soft from rain. The prints weren't clear enough to identify, but they were wrong in a way that's hard to explain. Too long. Toes uneven, like the foot hadn't decided what shape it was supposed to be. They led toward the tree line. I didn't follow them. From then on, things escalated slowly, deliberately, like whatever was watching me didn't want to rush. I began to feel it on the drive home. That sensation you get when you're not alone, even though there's no one in the passenger seat. Once I glanced in the rearview mirror and thought I saw something tall standing just beyond the reach of my headlights, far back on the road. When I blinked, it was gone. The first time I heard my name, I was still in the car. I'd just pulled into the driveway when it came from the woods behind the house. Hey. Soft. Familiar. It sounded like my voice. I laughed out loud and nervous, embarrassed, and locked the doors before getting out. That night, I dreamed of footsteps circling the house. On the fifth night, I woke up to knocking. Not banging, not frantic, measured. 3 knocks on the front door, a pause, 3 more. I lay there listening, heart pounding, waiting for whoever it was to say something. They didn't. When I finally worked up the nerve to check, the porch was empty. The door cam showed nothing. No movement, no heat signature, just the door. The following night, the knocking moved. It came from the side of the house, directly beneath my bedroom window. That's when the voice changed. "Let me in," it said. It was my voice again. Same pitch. Same tired cadence. I didn't answer. I didn't move. The voice tried again, this time warmer, friendlier. "You forgot something. Just open the door." The handle rattled once. I don't remember falling asleep. In the days that followed, it began appearing before I got home. Once I saw it standing at the edge of my driveway when I turned the corner. Tall, pale, motionless. By the time I slammed the brakes, it had stepped backward into the trees, moving with an awkward smoothness that made my stomach drop. It started leaving things behind. A cigarette butt on the porch. I don't smoke. Mud on the inside doorknob. A handprint on the bathroom mirror that wasn't mine. Too long, too narrow, fingers bent inward slightly like they'd been pressed flat unnaturally. The worst part wasn't the fear, it was the realization that it was learning me. It knew when I came home. It knew when I showered. It knew which lights I left on. One night I heard footsteps in the hallway while I was in bed. Slow. careful. I held my breath as they stopped outside my bedroom door, and the knob turned. Just a fraction. Enough to let me know it could open it if it wanted to. Instead, it spoke. "Still awake?" it asked, in my voice. I left the next morning, packed whatever I could fit in the car, and drove until I didn't recognize the roads anymore. For 3 nights, I slept in motels. On the 4th night, the clerk handed me my key and said, "Your friend is already waiting." I asked what she meant. She pointed toward the parking lot. Someone tall stood beside my car, watching the entrance, smiling. I don't sleep indoors anymore. Sometimes when I'm alone at night, I hear my own voice calling my name from just outside whatever shelter I've found. And every time, it already knows where I am. I was part of a search party that found something in the woods. I've been asked more than once why I quit volunteering for search and rescue. I usually say it was the time commitment or the cold or the way my knees never recovered after long hikes. That answer satisfies people. They nod and move on. The truth is, I stopped because of what we found during a search in northern Montana and what followed us out of the woods. It was late October when the call came in. A solo hiker hadn't returned from a 3-day trip near the edge of a national forest, close to a stretch locals avoid without ever really explaining why. No trailhead log, no phone signal, just a car left at a turnout and a worried sister who waited 2 extra days before calling authorities. By the time we assembled, snow was already dusting the tree line. The ranger briefing was short, too short. We were told to stay in groups of 4, no wandering, no splitting off, even if we heard something. Radios were limited. Apparently the terrain interfered, and if one failed, we were to return immediately. That last part felt strange. Then the ranger added something that stuck with me. "If you hear your name," he said, not looking up from his clipboard, "assume it's the wind." A few of us exchanged glances. The forest swallowed us the moment we stepped past the tree line. Sound dampened instantly like the air itself had thickened. Even our boots, crunching on frost-covered leaves, felt muted, distant. Pines rose high above us, their tops lost in low cloud and mist. Trunks packed so tightly together that daylight barely filtered through. At first it felt like any other search. We called out the hiker's name every few minutes. We checked creek beds, scanned for broken branches, scraps of fabric. After an hour, the cold crept in, the kind that starts in your spine and slowly works its way outward. Then the forest went quiet. Not peaceful quiet, dead quiet. No birds, no wind, no distant movement. It happened so gradually, I didn't notice at first. Just a growing pressure in my ears, like the moment before altitude sickness hits. I remember realizing I could hear my own breathing too clearly, each exhale fogging the air in front of my face. One of the guys behind me muttered, "That's not right." We found the first sign just after noon. Footprints. They came out of nowhere. A clear line pressed into a patch of damp soil beside a stand of fir trees. At first glance, they looked human, hiking boots, deep tread. But then I noticed the spacing. The stride was wrong. Too long. Each step was nearly 6 feet apart, as if whoever made them wasn't walking so much as reaching. We followed them uphill, deeper into the trees, and that's when the smell hit us. Rot. Not the earthy smell of decay you expect in the woods. This was sharper, sour, like spoiled meat left in the sun. It caught in the back of my throat and made my eyes water. Someone gagged. That's when we found the backpack. It was hanging from a tree branch. Not snagged, placed. Strapped neatly, chest clip fastened, dangling just out of reach, swaying gently even though there was still no wind. The fabric was torn in long, vertical strips, as if something had raked its fingers down the front. Inside, everything was intact: food, water, first aid kit. The only thing missing was the hiker. We radioed it in. Static answered. As we stood there, the quiet pressed harder. My skin prickled, hairs lifting along my arms and neck. That's when I became aware of something else. We were being watched. I couldn't see anything, but the feeling was overwhelming, like a weight between my shoulder blades. I kept turning, scanning the trees, expecting movement. Nothing. Then we heard it. Someone calling for help. It sounded faint, male, weak. It sounded like it was coming from downhill. Relief flooded through us, immediate and blinding. Someone shouted the hiker's name and took a step forward before the rest of us grabbed him. Because the voice repeated itself. Exact same tone, exact same cadence. Like a recording being played again. That's when I remembered the ranger's warning. If you hear your name, assume it's the wind. But this wasn't a name, it was a plea. And it was wrong. The voice came again, closer this time, echoing through the trees. And now I could hear something underneath it. Breathing, too heavy, too slow. Branches snapped somewhere to our left, then to our right, surrounding us. We backed away from the backpack, keeping our formation tight, weapons raised more out of instinct than training. My heart hammered so hard it made my vision pulse. That's when I saw it. Between two trees, maybe 40 yards out. Tall. Too tall. It was hunched, but even crouched, it towered over the undergrowth. Its limbs were long and thin, bending at wrong angles, skin stretched tight over bone, pale against the dark bark. I couldn't make out a face, just a suggestion of one, where the head tilted slightly like it was studying us. Then it smiled. I don't know how I know that, I just do. The voice spoke again, clearer now. Help me. It sounded exactly like one of the men standing beside me. That's when panic broke. We didn't run, we retreated fast and controlled, training barely holding together as the forest seemed to close in around us. Branches snagged our packs. Roots caught our boots. The smell of rot grew stronger with every step. Something moved parallel to us, always just out of sight, always keeping pace. We made it back to the tree line at dusk. The moment we crossed out of the forest, sound rushed back in. I heard wind, birds, the distant hum of a road. It was so sudden it made me dizzy. The ranger met us without asking questions. He just counted heads. Then he nodded once and told us the search was over. Officially, the hiker was never found. But that's not the end. For weeks after, I heard things at night. My name whispered just outside my bedroom window. Footsteps pacing my backyard. Once, I woke to the smell of rot filling my house, only for it to vanish the moment I turned on the lights. Others from the team reported similar things. One moved away, one stopped sleeping entirely, another, the one whose voice had been mimicked, disappeared 6 months later while camping alone. No trace, no search. Now, when people ask me why I quit search and rescue, I smile and give them the easy answer. But I know the truth. Whatever lives in those woods learned our voices that day, and sometimes when the nights are quiet enough, I swear I can hear it practicing mine. Search and rescue teams are trained to look for the lost. But there are places in the wilderness where something else is doing the searching. Places where voices don't belong to the people who speak them, and where the forest remembers everyone who enters. If you enjoyed this story, consider subscribing to Dark Trail Confessions. New stories are released regularly, all based on encounters people were never supposed to survive. And remember, if you hear your name in the woods, don't answer. The Dogman stalked our cabin for a week. I don't even know where to start. I've read so many stories like this, told by people who never believed in the unbelievable. And I thought I was one of them. But after what happened at the cabin in northern Montana, I can't convince myself that it wasn't real. It began the first night we arrived. My friends and I, which got 5 of us in total, had rented an isolated cabin deep in the woods, far from the main trailhead. The place was perfect for a weekend getaway. No cell service, no neighbors for miles, just the cold forest and the smell of pine. The first night was quiet, almost too quiet. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to the sound of footsteps circling the cabin. Heavy, deliberate. They didn't sound human. At first, I convinced myself it was just an animal, maybe a deer, maybe a bear. But bears don't walk around on 2 legs. They don't pause in front of the door as if considering whether to come inside. And they certainly don't make a low, guttural growl when you shine a flashlight in their direction. By morning, the snow around the cabin showed footprints unlike anything I'd ever seen. They were large, almost human in shape, but the toes, there were too many. And the stride? No person could cover that distance with those prints. We tried to rationalize. It's probably a prank, someone said. But none of us were local, and we were miles from any other cabins. No one else had the keys, and there was no road access for vehicles. Night 2, it got worse. I woke up to a series of bangs on the cabin walls, one after another. My heart froze when I realized they weren't random. Whoever or whatever was outside knew exactly where each of us slept. We huddled in the living room, lights on, trying to convince ourselves that daylight would bring safety. Investigators who've later looked into similar encounters described the Dogman as a cryptid, resembling a large wolf or dog, upright, extremely agile, and terrifyingly intelligent. They move silently through the woods, sometimes for days, watching, studying, waiting, and they are territorial, very territorial. By the 3rd night, we weren't sleeping at all. I remember standing outside at dusk, pretending to check the propane tank, when I caught sight of something in the tree line. Tall, broad, covered in dark fur, its eyes glowing amber until locked onto mine. And then it vanished. Some reports suggest the Dogman can mimic human voices, or at least create sounds that lure people deeper into the woods. That night I heard whispering, faint but unmistakable. The voice sounded like my own name. Michael. Michael. I froze. My friends were inside, asleep, or so I thought. The whispering came closer. We debated leaving, but the snowstorm had set in. Roads were blocked, and our vehicle was stuck behind a drift. We were trapped. By night 4, it became almost taunting. Small items went missing from inside the cabin. A lighter, a pack of matches, a jacket. Nothing else. The doors were locked. Windows shut. No footprints inside. I didn't sleep the 5th night. My friend Sarah insisted she saw it crouching on the roof at 3 a.m. staring through the skylight. No one believed her. Until morning, when the shingles had been scratched. Deep claw marks etched in a pattern I've never seen. The sixth night, something new happened. Scratching at the front door, then at the back, then the windows, and then, the most terrifying thing of all, a series of low, mournful howls. Not just one, but dozens, surrounding the cabin, echoing through the trees. I remember standing by the window, flashlight in hand, when it appeared again, tall, upright, impossibly fast. It watched us, and then it vanished into the darkness. Investigators looking at similar cases note that the Dogman often disappears without a trace. Tracks vanish mid-forest, noises stop suddenly, and sometimes entire campsites show signs of intrusion. But no bodies, no clear evidence, just the memory of its presence. The seventh night I woke to a different sound, footsteps, inside the cabin, not on the roof, not outside, inside. I don't remember what happened after that. I woke up hours later in my car, far down the main road, alone. The cabin was empty. My friends were gone. No one has ever been found. The sheriff's department found the cabin untouched, except for the scratches on the roof and the strange footprints in the snow outside. They called it unexplained and advised anyone entering those woods to take extreme caution. I've tried to piece it together. Every news report, every cryptid forum post, every missing 411 case I could find. Nothing explains why it followed us, why it waited 7 nights, and why it allowed me to survive. I don't know why, and I don't know if I ever want to return, but I can tell you this. If you hear footsteps circling your cabin, low growls in the trees, or a whisper of your name in the dead of night, don't follow it, and whatever you do, don't think you're alone, because some things in the forest are smarter than you, faster than you, and far more patient than any human could ever be. Whatever followed us out of Navajo Nation. I was warned before I ever stepped onto the reservation. Not by a ranger, not by a sign, by the woman at the gas station. She looked at the out-of-state plates on my truck, then at the camping gear in the bed, and asked where I was headed. When I told her, her smile vanished. "You don't whistle at night," she said. "And if you hear someone call your name, you don't answer." I laughed it off. I wish I hadn't. My friend Eric and I were filming a short documentary, just landscapes, stars, old roads. We parked near an unmarked dirt turnout miles from the nearest town. No lights, no cell service, just desert stretching forever. Night came fast, too fast. Around midnight, we heard footsteps outside the tent, slow, careful, like someone testing the ground with each step. Eric whispered, "Probably a coyote." Then it spoke. "Eric?" My blood turned to ice. It was my voice, not close, not far, somewhere just beyond the firelight. I didn't answer. Neither did Eric. The footsteps circled us for nearly an hour, sometimes 4 steps, sometimes 2, sometimes none at all. Then the smell came. Wet fur, rot, something coppery. I heard breathing directly behind the tent wall, slow and excited, like whatever it was had finally found us. Then it laughed. A broken, choking sound, like it didn't understand how laughter worked. We didn't sleep. At dawn, we packed up in silence. As we drove away, Eric stared into the side mirror and whispered, "It's running." I didn't look. I should have. That night in a motel over 100 miles away, I heard someone knock on the door, 3 taps, slow, careful. I didn't open it, but I heard my own voice from the hallway say, Eric, open up. Something keeps pace with you on old logging roads. I grew up in eastern Kentucky, where the roads don't have names, just habits. They wind where they want, disappear without warning, and somehow always lead you deeper into the hills instead of out. I was driving one of those roads the night it happened. No music, no phone signal, just headlights and trees. I noticed it first in my mirrors. Something tall pacing the truck from the tree line. At first I thought it was a deer running parallel to me. That made sense. Until it kept up at 40 miles per hour, then 50. Its stride was wrong, too smooth, too long. It wasn't bounding, it was running, upright, shoulders rolling with each step. I slowed down. So did it. I sped up. So did it. That's when it stepped into the road. It stood at least 7 feet tall, covered in dark, patchy fur. Its head sat too far forward on its shoulders, like a wolf's skull forced onto a man's body. Its eyes reflected yellow, not like an animal, but like glass catching light. I slammed the brakes. It didn't flinch. It smiled. Lips pulled back to show too many teeth, all human-shaped, all wrong. Then it walked to the side of my truck and leaned down until its face was level with my window. I could hear its breathing through the glass. Slow, controlled. It tapped the window once with a claw, not hard, just enough to let me know it could. I don't remember making the decision to drive, I just did. Branches scraped the truck as I tore down the road, ignoring turns, ignoring common sense. In the mirror, I saw it drop to all fours and sprint. It gained ground. Fast, its mouth opened as it ran, tongue lolling, jaw unhinging wider with every step. And then, my headlights caught a bridge, old, narrow, wood planks. I hit it at full speed. The truck bounced, swerved, and I felt something slam into the tailgate. Metal screamed. The bridge shook. Then silence. I didn't stop driving until sunrise. A week later, I went back with daylight and a borrowed nerve. There were claw marks in the wood, deep ones. And on the bridge railing, carved into the grain, like it had been done slowly, carefully, were 3 words. You run good. I don't take those roads anymore. But sometimes, when I'm driving at night, something keeps pace with me just outside the headlights. This is The Ranger and the Wendigo, a story from the remote wilderness of northern Minnesota, where some things shouldn't be disturbed. I've been a park ranger for nearly a decade. I've seen bear attacks, lost hikers, snowstorms that stranded entire families. I thought I'd seen it all. But nothing could have prepared me for what I encountered that winter. I was called to investigate a pair of missing hikers, a man and a woman in their 20s. Their campsite was in a remote section of the forest, far from the main trails. When I arrived, my stomach sank. The camp was ransacked, tents torn open, supplies scattered. A few pieces of clothing were shredded, bloodless but ripped as if by claws. The snow around the site was disturbed, trampled in erratic patterns. Something had been here, and it wasn't human. I decided to follow the tracks, which led deeper into the forest. The air was thick, cold, and still. I moved slowly, senses on high alert. Every snap of a branch, every rustle of the underbrush made my heart hammer. Then I saw it. At first I thought it was a deer, grazing near the brush. Its antlers glinted in the pale sunlight. Relief washed over me. Maybe it was nothing. Just a deer. But then it lifted its head, its eyes. Oh God, its eyes. Wide, yellow, unblinking. And it wasn't looking at me like a deer would. It was studying me. And then it stood on its hind legs, taller than any human I'd ever seen, limbs elongated, twisted unnaturally. Its coat was patchy, matted, and reeked of something rotten. The smell hit me before I even fully realized what was happening. Rotting flesh, death, decay. My stomach turned. My legs wanted to run, but my feet were rooted to the snow. The thing tilted its head like a predator, sniffing the air, measuring me. Its mouth opened just slightly, revealing sharp, jagged teeth, glinting in the dim light. And then it moved, silently, like a shadow sliding across the snow. I fumbled for my radio, but my hands shook too much. "Dispatch, I found something strange," I whispered, voice trembling. The thing took a step closer, too fast, too fluid. Its eyes never left mine. Every instinct screamed for me to run. I bolted. My boots sank into the snow, legs burning, lungs screaming for air. Behind me, branches snapped. A guttural growl echoed through the trees, low and inhuman. Something was following me. I dared not look back. The tracks led me to a ridge, overlooking a frozen creek. I thought I'd lose it here, maybe escape. But then I saw the snow ahead, scattered broken footprints, human-sized, elongated, clawed. They were fresh, and they weren't alone. Something bellowed from the trees, a sound I can't describe. Somewhere between a roar and a shriek, like the forest itself had turned against me. I stumbled into the trees, hiding behind a fallen pine. My flashlight caught movement. The Wendigo, or whatever it was, emerged from the brush, standing tall, staring directly at me. Its eyes glowed with a hunger I could feel in my chest. It sniffed the air. I smelled the same rot from before. I should have screamed. I should have run. But I froze. Every horror movie I'd ever mocked, every story I'd laughed at as a rookie ranger, all of it was real now. It stepped closer. One long, silent step, then another. Its head tilted, studying me like prey, savoring the fear. I ran again and again. Every turn I took, it mirrored me. Silent, swift, unstoppable. Hours later, I found the hikers. They were gone. Only scraps of their clothing remained, torn, bloodless, scattered in the snow. No footprints, no struggle, just absence. I barely made it out of the forest. My boots soaked, my hands frozen, my mind screaming with what I'd seen. I've never gone back, and I never will. Sometimes late at night, I swear I can still smell it. The rot, the forest, the hunger. And I know it's still out there, waiting, watching, hunting. Story 4. I was followed by something I can't name. I was told not to write this down. Not officially, anyway. The incident report I submitted was 3 pages long, heavily redacted, and signed off by 2 supervisors who never once asked me to explain it in person. They just told me to take a few weeks off, reassigned my patrol area, and reminded me that anything I experienced beyond that report was stress-related misperception. This document is not that report. This is the version I never submitted, the one I've kept hidden for almost 6 years. And if this ends up being the last thing I ever write, then you'll understand why. I was a backcountry ranger stationed near a protected forest zone that borders tribal land. I won't name the forest, not because I don't want to, but because I was explicitly warned that mentioning it again would result in termination or worse. The call came in just after dusk. A hunter hadn't checked in. Male, mid-40s, experienced, familiar with the terrain. His truck was found at a trailhead that hadn't seen much foot traffic in years. No sign of struggle, no blood, no gear missing, just his boots, placed neatly side by side at the edge of the trees. That alone should have told us something was wrong. Hunters don't remove their boots in the wilderness, not unless they're dead, delirious, or told to. The search team was small. Myself, another ranger named Cole, 2 volunteers, and a tribal liaison who joined us quietly without much introduction. He didn't wear a uniform, didn't carry a radio. He barely spoke. But when he did, we listened. The first night was uneventful in the way that silence can be worse than noise. No animal calls, no insects. Even the wind felt muted, like the forest was holding its breath. At around 11 p.m., we heard someone calling out, "Help! I'm over here!" It was close. Too close. Cole immediately reached for his radio, but the liaison stopped him with a hand on his wrist. "That's not him," the man said calmly. "How do you know?" Cole asked. The liaison tilted his head, listening. "Because he's been dead for 2 days." The voice called again. Same words, same tone, same desperation. "Help, I'm over here." It sounded perfect. We didn't answer. That was the first rule the liaison gave us. Never answer, never call back, never say a name. And above all, never follow a voice that knows you. The second night was worse. We found tracks, bare footprints leading deeper into restricted land. They were wrong in subtle ways, too long, toes that dragged unnaturally, heels that pressed too deep, like the thing walking didn't quite understand balance. At one point, the footprints stopped abruptly. No scuffing, no turn, just gone. That's when the radio crackled. "Ranger unit, do you copy?" It was my voice, perfectly, exactly.
"Hey, can you hear me? I am in trouble. I am in trouble."
I felt the blood drain from my face. Cole stared at me. "You didn't." "I didn't," I said. The radio repeated it. "Ranger unit, do you copy?" Then softer. "You left me out here." The liaison closed his eyes. "It knows you now," he said. We camped in a clearing we shouldn't have. The liaison warned us, but command insisted we hold position until morning. Procedure over instinct. At around 2:17 a.m., something walked the perimeter of our camp. Heavy steps, slow, deliberate. Too heavy to be a man, too measured to be an animal. It circled us once, twice. On the third pass, it stopped just beyond the firelight and spoke, not shouted, not growled. Spoke. "Why won't you help me?" It was the hunter's voice. I'd listened to his voicemail before the search. Same cadence, same slight stutter on certain words. Cole whispered, "Jesus Christ." The thing laughed. But it laughed wrong, like it was copying the idea of laughter without understanding joy. At some point, I realized something else. The footsteps didn't match the voice's position. It was speaking from the trees. But the steps, they were behind me, right behind my tent, breathing, learning. The liaison stood up. I grabbed his arm. "What are you doing?" He looked at me with something close to pity. "Ending it," he said. He stepped past the firelight and spoke in a language I didn't recognize. His voice was firm, commanding. The forest answered, branches cracked. Something moved fast, too fast, and there was a sound I still hear in my sleep. A wet, tearing scream. Then silence. The liaison never came back. Morning came like nothing had happened. No tracks, no signs of struggle, No body. Command called off the search by noon. Officially, the hunter was listed as missing, presumed dead. Unofficially, that area was quietly reclassified. Trails removed from maps, access points blocked. I asked one of my superiors what happened to the liaison. He stared at me for a long moment, then said, "There was no liaison on your team." I tried to forget. Transferred posts, took leave, told myself it was trauma. Until 3 months later, when I heard my voice again, coming from the tree line outside my cabin. Soft, patient. "Ranger unit," it said. "I'm over here." I don't answer anymore. I don't sleep near windows. And if this is the last thing you hear from me, then understand this. It doesn't stay in the forest. It learns you. And once it knows your voice, it never forgets.
Could somebody please help me? I need help.
They're watching through your webcam. I never thought I'd be afraid of my own technology. Not really. But curiosity, as always, has a way of digging its claws in. It started innocently enough. I had been reading articles about webcam hacking. Harmless, mostly. People telling stories about feeling watched or noticing the little green light blink when their webcam wasn't on. I laughed it off, a nervous chuckle. Paranoia, I told myself. People just like to scare themselves. But the feeling stayed. Little things. A flicker of the webcam light, a soft buzzing in my laptop speakers. My reflection seemed slightly off when I walked past the screen. I brushed it off. Too many horror stories, too much time alone, too much dark web curiosity. Then the first incident happened. I noticed it late at night, after hours of browsing obscure forums. A figure appeared, just a silhouette, in the corner of my laptop's webcam feed. My heart stopped. I blinked. It was gone. I tried to convince myself it was a reflection, a trick of the light, but I couldn't shake it. Over the next few nights, the figure returned, always in the same corner, always watching. I started checking my computer settings obsessively, scanning for malware, running antivirus programs. Nothing. Messages began appearing, not emails, not text messages, just small pop-ups on my laptop. Brief, cryptic, sometimes only symbols. One read, "I see you." My fingers froze over the keyboard. I wanted to shut it down, throw the laptop across the room, but I couldn't. Every time I tried, it seemed to fight back, the cursor moving, programs opening and closing, the webcam light flickering. Sleep became impossible. I started noticing things in my apartment moving slightly. Books on my shelves turned. The blinds slightly angled. The figurine from the first story in my collection facing me differently every day. I couldn't tell if it was real or if my mind was unraveling. Then came the nights I saw movement, unmistakable, deliberate movement, just beyond the screen. The silhouette stepped closer each time. Sometimes it seemed to mirror me, my own movements reflected in its shadows. I began documenting it, trying to rationalize it. Hours of video, dozens of screenshots. But the more I documented, the more it seemed aware. It started leaving subtle messages. Don't look away. We know when you blink, you can't hide. And then the packages started arriving. Small black envelopes slipped under my door containing screenshots of my daily life. Videos, images of me, awake, asleep in my own home. One night I woke to my laptop on the desk that powered on. The live feed showed my bedroom, and there it was, the figure, standing, not hunched, not hidden, watching, waiting. I could feel it through the screen. The whispers started then, distorted, electronic, coming from the speakers. Not words I could understand, but tones, cadence, and pauses that felt like a language of warning. The lights flickered. My phone buzzed. Every device, all at once, screamed at me with alerts. I tried to leave, to escape. But as I reached for the doorknob, the figure in the webcam mirrored my movement. Every step, every motion it copied. I realized then, it didn't just watch me. It knew me. It anticipated me. Days bled into nights. My life became a nightmare of screens and shadows. Friends called, worried, noticing my withdrawal. I couldn't tell them. They wouldn't understand. And deep down, I feared even speaking could make it worse. That somehow it would hear me through my devices. Finally, the climax. I returned home one night to find my apartment subtly rearranged. Chairs angled wrong, objects displaced, photos moved. The laptop powered itself on, and in the live feed, a full view of my apartment. The figure no longer just a shadow, its face obscured but eerily human, watching, waiting. I ran, I fled, my apartment abandoned, my life fractured. Weeks later, I received a single email. We never stop watching, and we are closer than you think. Even now, I feel its presence in every blinking light, in every faint reflection on my screens. It is patient, it is silent, and it is always watching. The stories you've just heard are only a glimpse of the darkness that lurks in the corners of the internet, and sometimes, in our own lives. Curiosity can be dangerous. It can pull you in quietly, slowly, until you're no longer sure what's real. If you think these tales are over, remember this. Once you open certain doors, they never truly close. Thank you for watching Dark Trail Confessions. If you dare, subscribe for more stories that haunt the shadows of our world, and sometimes the corners of your own home. And remember, in the dark, someone or something may always be watching.